Jack Davis thought his new ranch was the fresh start he needed, but it came with an unexpected price. 3 towering women who claim the land as their own have a strange, chilling proposal. Stay and honor a mysterious debt left by the previous owner. With nowhere to turn and no one to trust, Jack is forced to confront the terrifying truth behind his purchase. Will he escape, or will he fall into their web of power and intrigue? Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from, and if stories like this intrigue you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button because the next chapter will take you deeper into a world of mystery, power, and unexpected bonds. You won't want to miss what happens next. Jack Davis hadn't expected his dream to come true like this. The dusty road that led him to the ranch was more rugged than he remembered, the kind of path you only find in the forgotten corners of the world. His boots hit the dirt with a heavy thud, each step toward his new life a mix of anticipation and uncertainty. The land spread out before him vast, empty, and silent just like he'd imagined it. A sprawling farm with nothing but open space, fresh air, and the chance to rebuild. He looked down at the deed in his hands, the paper still crisp, its official seal gleaming in the early afternoon light. It was a bargain, a chance to start over after everything had fallen apart back home. The previous owner, a man named Marcus Vance, had practically given it away, desperate to unload it before the debts caught up with him. Jack didn't ask too many questions about the past. It didn't matter now. This place was his, and it was exactly what he needed: a fresh start. The house loomed ahead, a lonely, weathered farmhouse with peeling paint and a porch that seemed to sag with years of neglect. But there was something else, a sense of weight in the air. The trees near the house bent unnaturally toward it, their twisted trunks seeming to draw Jack's eyes in like they were trying to warn him. But he dismissed it. After all, there was nothing more than a few stories of strange happenings: crops dying, animals disappearing, and owners vanishing. Ghost stories, really. Nothing he couldn't handle. That's when he saw them. 3 women stood on the porch, tall and imposing, their silhouettes stretched out against the late afternoon Sunday. The first woman, the tallest of them all, had a broad frame and shoulders that looked like they could carry the weight of the world. Her dark hair flowed in waves, and when she stepped forward, Jack noticed her piercing blue eyes cold, calculating, as if she could see right through him. "You must be the new owner," she said, her voice low and steady, but with an authority that immediately made Jack's heart skip. There was no warmth in her greeting, just a businesslike tone, as if this meeting had been set in stone long before he had arrived. Jack opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. His mind raced. This was his property. No one had the right to stand in his way. And yet, these women didn't seem like ordinary squatters or strangers. They had a claim. Something in their posture, their demeanor that felt ancient. The second woman stood beside the first, just as towering, with sharp features and a strength in her stance that spoke of years of hard labor. She crossed her arms over her chest, watching Jack with a calculating gaze. The third woman, slightly shorter but no less intimidating, had fiery red hair that shimmered in the sunlight, freckles dotting her arms and face like stars across the night sky. "We've been expecting you, Jack Davis," the redhead said, her smile slow and knowing, sending an involuntary shiver up Jack's spine. He froze. How did they know his name? I don't understand," he stammered, his grip tightening on the deed. "This is my land. I bought it fair and square." The tall woman who Jack presumed to be the leader stepped forward, her eyes narrowing as she took in his unease. "Oh, we know exactly who you are, Jack, and we've been waiting for someone like you." Her voice lingered in the air, heavy with something he couldn't quite put his finger on. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. The land was supposed to be empty, no one here but him. But now, standing before these 3 women, something deep inside him told him that he had made a mistake he might never be able to undo. The first woman, still watching him with cold blue eyes, smiled, but it wasn't a smile of welcome. The previous owner made certain arrangements before he left, arrangements that don't just disappear because of a piece of paper. She paused, her voice dropping lower, as if delivering a secret. "Arrangements that involve you staying here with us, permanently." Jack's mind raced, trying to piece together what had just happened. The women, standing so confidently on the porch, seemed to tower over him in more ways than one. He swallowed hard, trying to steady his breathing, but their presence felt like a weight he couldn't shake off. This doesn't make sense," Jack muttered, his voice barely a whisper. "I've got the deed. It's legal. I paid for this place. I don't know what game you're playing, but— Oh, we're not playing any games, Jack, the tall woman interrupted. Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes remained fixed on him, unblinking. You're the one who's in the game. You just don't realize it yet. Her words struck him like a slap. Jack felt a cold shiver crawl down his spine. He'd come to the ranch to escape the mess of his past broken relationships, debts, failed projects, but now he was caught in something even stranger, something more dangerous than he could have imagined. The second woman, the one with the dark hair and broader shoulders, took a step forward, her gaze never leaving him. You've already made your choice, Jack, she said, her voice deep and smooth, like someone who was used to making deals. This land, it's not just about ownership, it's about connection. And once you step onto it, there's no turning back. Jack's stomach twisted. He was starting to feel like the walls were closing in on him. The more they spoke, the more he realized they weren't just strange women, they were claiming something far more than land. And if what they were saying was true, he might have stepped right into the middle of a much larger plan than he could have imagined. He shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts. You don't know me. This is my land now. I don't care what arrangements the previous owner made. This is my fresh start. I'm not going to just— You're wrong, Jack, the redhead interrupted, her voice lighter than the others, but no less ominous. You're part of something bigger now. You think you bought a piece of land, but really, you bought into a legacy, a promise that was made long before you ever came here. Jack's hand tightened around the deed, the paper beginning to feel heavier. Was this some kind of trap? How could they possibly know about his past? About Marcus Vance, the man who had practically begged him to take the land off his hands? The leader, still watching him closely, took a slow step forward. The previous owner didn't just sell you a property, Jack, she said softly, her voice almost hypnotic. He sold you his debt, and with it, you inherited more than just a piece of land. You inherited a responsibility that includes us. Jack blinked. Responsibility? He repeated, trying to comprehend what she was implying. This is ridiculous. I didn't sign up for any responsibility to you. The tall woman's smile faded, replaced by a look of cold resolve. You didn't have to sign anything, Jack. The land has its own rules. The debt is personal. And now so are we. Jack felt the ground beneath him shift. The air had gone thick, charged with something he couldn't identify. It wasn't just the weight of the land, it was the weight of their presence, of their claim over him. He felt his palms sweat, his mind running in circles, trying to process it all. The second woman spoke again, her eyes softer now, but her voice held that same unyielding tone. We've lived here for a long time, long before the previous owner sold it. We've cared for it, protected it, and when he left, we thought we were done with this place. But then you came, and you are exactly what we need. Jack took a deep breath, his mind struggling to grasp the situation. This wasn't just about land, or a bad business deal. This was about something much more dangerous, something that was beginning to feel like a trap closing around him. And what is it you need from me? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The redhead took a step forward, her lips curling into a smile. We need you to stay, Jack, to honor the debt, to fulfill the promises the previous owner made. That means you will be part of our arrangement, part of this land, forever. The words hit him like a punch to the gut. Jack's heart raced as his mind struggled to comprehend what they were saying. They wanted him to stay, to be part of their world. His breath caught in his throat. This wasn't just about a business transaction, it was something far darker, far more intimate. You're insane, Jack said, his voice trembling now. I'm not staying here. This is my land. I'm leaving. But even as he said it, Jack knew he wouldn't be able to leave, not unless he was ready to face the consequences. And the women, they weren't letting him go that easily. The tall woman stepped closer, her presence overwhelming, like a storm on the horizon. You don't understand, Jack, she said quietly, her voice almost tender now. You're already ours. The land chose you, whether you like it or not. Jack barely slept that night, his mind racing with the words the women had spoken. The more he thought about it, the less he understood. There had to be a rational explanation for everything, didn't there? Some kind of scheme, some trick he hadn't seen yet. But every time he tried to convince himself he was overreacting, the unease in his gut grew. He woke early, the sun barely peeking over the horizon, casting long shadows across the land. The ranch seemed quieter now, almost suffocating in its silence. As Jack stepped out of the cabin, the weight of the night's conversation followed him like a storm cloud. He spotted the three women again, standing near the fence, their figures imposing even from a distance. The tall woman was leaning on a large wooden post, her eyes scanning the horizon. The dark-haired woman stood beside her, arms crossed, while the redhead fiddled with something in her hands. They weren't watching him, but Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were waiting for him to make the next move. Jack walked toward them, the air thick with tension. As he approached, the tall woman turned, her gaze locking onto him immediately. "We didn't expect you to understand right away," she said, her voice steady and measured. "But you will, Jack. Eventually, you'll understand everything." "I don't understand anything," Jack replied, his frustration bubbling over. "I don't know who you are, or why you think you have any claim to this land. This is my property. I paid for it, and I want answers." The redhead's lips curved into a slow smile, a hint of amusement in her eyes. "You'll get your answers. But it's not just about the money, Jack. It's never been about the money." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "Then what is it about?" The dark-haired woman stepped forward, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "It's about the debt. The debt Marcus Vance owed us. And now it's yours." Jack blinked, the words sinking into him like ice-cold water. "Debt?" he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do you mean, debt?" The tall woman straightened, her posture rigid, and Jack noticed a flicker of something older, deeper in her eyes. "The land has always been ours, Jack. Long before Marcus came into the picture, we've cared for it. We've maintained it. And when Marcus came, he promised us things. Promises that went beyond the written word." Jack felt his chest tighten. "What kind of promises?" The redhead glanced at her companions, then back at Jack. "Promises to stay, promises to provide, and promises to..." She hesitated, her eyes narrowing as if searching for the right words. "Promises to join us, all of us." Jack's pulse quickened. He took a step back, suddenly feeling the weight of their words pressing on him. "You're talking about some kind of arrangement. A partnership?" The dark-haired woman's eyes softened, almost pitying. "You don't understand. It wasn't just a business deal. It was more than that. The land has its own rules, its own bond. When Marcus bought this place, he agreed to honor our terms. And now, you've inherited those terms." Jack was reeling. The pieces didn't fit. He didn't know what kind of game they were playing, but he was starting to realize that it was far more than he could have imagined. This wasn't just a land transaction. It was a trap, an obligation that was older than him, older than Marcus, something bigger than any written document. "I don't owe you anything," Jack said, more forcefully than he felt. "I didn't sign anything. I didn't make any promises." The tall woman stepped closer, her presence overwhelming. "It doesn't matter what you signed, Jack. It doesn't matter what you think you owe or don't owe. The debt is here. And now, it's your responsibility." Jack's throat tightened, and his mind spun. This wasn't just a matter of legal ownership anymore. This was about something deep, something unexplainable. They were talking about ancient bonds, things that didn't make sense, and he was caught in the middle of it, with no way out. The redhead gave a soft laugh, as if reading his mind. "You're trapped here, Jack, and the sooner you accept that, the easier it'll be." Jack's mind whirled. He wanted to run, to get back in his truck and drive away, but he knew, deep down, that it wasn't that simple. He couldn't leave, not after what they had said, not after how they looked at him. "And if I refuse?" Jack asked, his voice barely audible. The tall woman's smile remained, but there was no warmth in it. "Refuse, and you'll have to answer to the land. And trust me, Jack, its justice is not something you want to test." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. The air around him seemed to grow colder, heavier. It wasn't just the weight of their words, it was the weight of the land itself, closing in on him, claiming him as its own. "You've already made your choice," the dark-haired woman said softly. "Now, you'll learn what it means to honor it." Jack stood there, his body frozen, his mind racing. He had come here seeking a fresh start, but instead, he had walked into a nightmare that had nothing to do with ghosts or curses, but with debts and promises that could never be repaid. And as the women turned and walked away, Jack knew one thing for certain. There was no escaping the land now. Not unless he was willing to face whatever it had in store for him. Jack spent the next few days in a haze, The ranch that had seemed like an opportunity now felt more like a prison. The women had made their intentions clear. But the more Jack tried to process it, the more confused he became. Every moment on the land seemed to blur into the next, as if time itself was bending in on him. He worked mechanically, fixing fences, tending to the few crops that hadn't withered under the harsh sun. But every task felt meaningless in the shadow of the strange claim the women had over him. The land was beginning to feel alive, like it had a heartbeat, and Jack could almost sense the weight of its gaze on him. Watching, waiting. He tried to avoid them, but it was impossible. The women were always there, a constant presence on the ranch, their long, imposing figures moving through the fields or standing watch on the porch. The more Jack stayed away, the more their presence seemed to loom over him. On the fourth day, the tall woman, Helena, appeared outside the small cabin Jack was attempting to make his home. Her silhouette was unmistakable, her presence dominating even from a distance. Jack tried to ignore her, but he knew better. He couldn't outrun this. "I see you've been busy," Helena said, her voice quiet but carrying that same authority that had unsettled him from the first moment they'd met. "But that's not why I'm here." Jack set down the shovel he had been using to dig in the dirt and looked up at her. He was exhausted physically, emotionally, mentally, but the frustration boiling in his chest couldn't be ignored. "Then why are you here?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "I've done what you asked. I've been here, but I'm not staying. I don't belong here." Helena took a slow step forward, her eyes never leaving his. "Oh, you belong here, Jack," she said, her words cold, yet laced with something that almost felt like pity. "It's not a matter of choice. This place chooses its own, and you're already part of it." Jack's pulse quickened, a feeling of unease spreading through him. "I didn't come here for this. I didn't come here to be tied to some kind of debt. To you." Helena's lips curled into a small, almost sad smile. "You don't understand, Jack. It's not about what you want. It's about what you've inherited, what you've been chosen for." She took another step closer, her towering frame now directly before him. "This isn't about a business deal. It's about an agreement, a bond, and you're part of it now." Jack's thoughts were spinning. This wasn't just about a contract. This wasn't just some land deal. He had stepped into something far bigger, far darker than he could have ever imagined. "I didn't make any promises," Jack said, his voice rising with frustration. "I didn't sign anything. I'm not bound by anyone's debt, especially not some twisted arrangement that's been going on for years." Helena's expression softened slightly, though her eyes still held that unnerving glint of control. "It's not about what you signed or didn't sign, Jack. It's about what's been promised, what's been owed." She paused, her gaze narrowing. "And now, it's your turn to honor that, whether you like it or not." Jack felt a cold shiver run down his spine as the full weight of her words settled over him. He wasn't just caught in a bad business deal. He wasn't just trapped by some bad luck. He was part of something that had been building long before he arrived, and whatever this was, it was bigger than him. It had power. "I'm not doing this," Jack said, his voice more forceful this time, his heart pounding in his chest. "I don't care what kind of twisted arrangement you think you have. I'm not staying here. I'm leaving. I'll find a way out." Helena's eyes darkened, her smile fading into something far more serious. "Leaving?" she repeated, her voice low. "You think you can just leave, Jack? You think you can walk away from something like this?" Jack didn't know what to say. The words felt hollow. He wasn't sure if he was trying to convince her or himself. "There are things that tie you here now, Jack," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Things you can't escape. You may think you can walk away, but the land won't let you go that easily." Jack took a step back, his head spinning. "What the hell does that mean? The land won't let me go?" The air around them seemed to thicken, and Jack's chest tightened. There was something about Helena's presence, something about the way she spoke, that made the world feel smaller, as if the space between them was closing in. She wasn't just talking about the land in front of him. She was talking about something deeper, something ancient. She reached out, a single finger grazing his arm. Jack flinched at the coldness of her touch. "It means that once you've come into this, Jack, you're part of it. Forever. This land, this debt, this bond. You'll understand soon enough." Jack recoiled, pulling his arm away. But there was no escaping her gaze, no escaping the strange hold she had on him. "And if I refuse to play your game?" Jack asked, his voice trembling, Though he tried to keep it steady, Helena's smile returned, this time colder, more calculating. Then you'll have to answer to the land, and the land has a way of making people comply. Jack's heart raced, and his hands clenched into fists. He wasn't sure whether he was scared of her, or scared of what he didn't understand. Maybe both. Don't worry, Jack, Helena continued, her tone almost gentle now. You don't have to decide everything right away. But know this, you're not leaving. Not unless you're willing to face the consequences. Jack stood there, frozen, as Helena's words echoed in his mind. He wasn't sure what to believe anymore. He didn't know what kind of twisted arrangement he'd walked into, or how to escape it. But one thing was clear, this wasn't just about land or money. This was something much bigger, and he was caught in it, whether he liked it or not. The days blurred together as Jack fought to make sense of his situation. His attempts to escape were futile. Every plan thwarted by the eerie presence of the women and the overwhelming feeling that the land itself was holding him captive. No matter how much he tried to distance himself, they always seemed to be there, waiting, watching. Helena, Ruth, and Magdalene, their names lingered on his tongue like a warning, each of them becoming more and more a fixture of his life. And with each passing hour, Jack's sense of reality began to unravel. The nights were the worst. Alone in the cabin, he could feel the land pressing in on him, its weight heavy in the silence. It wasn't just the isolation. It was the sense that something ancient, something far beyond his understanding, was always watching, waiting for him to make a mistake. The words Helena had spoken to him echoed in his mind, louder each time. The land won't let you go. He tried to leave once. On the third day after their conversation, he packed up what little belongings he had, hoping to drive off into the night. But when he reached the edge of the property, the road had changed. The gravel road had vanished, replaced by a twisted, narrow path leading him back to the farmhouse. No matter how many times he turned around, the road would always return him to the same spot. Jack had no choice but to return to the cabin, exhausted, defeated. The women were waiting for him when he got back. Their expressions were unreadable, but there was no mistaking the sense of expectation in the air. You thought you could leave? Ruth's voice was quiet, almost compassionate, but there was a steel edge to it. She stepped forward, her eyes searching his face. It's not that simple, Jack. Jack felt a surge of anger rise within him. This is insane. What the hell are you people doing to me? What do you want? Helena, standing just behind Ruth, raised a hand, silencing him with a gesture. Her face was calm, serene, as though she were delivering a long-anticipated lesson. You think you're the first to come here and try to leave? You think you're the first one to try and escape what you've inherited? This land, this place has its own rules, Jack, and you're a part of it now. You can't escape it, not without paying the price. The redhead, Magdalene, joined the conversation, her eyes gleaming with something like amusement. Oh, you'll pay it, Jack. You just don't know how yet. Jack felt his throat tighten, a cold sweat forming on his skin. He had to get out of here. He had to get away from them, from the land, from whatever had him trapped in this nightmare. And what's that supposed to mean? He demanded, his voice shaking with a mix of fear and anger. Helena stepped closer, her towering figure casting a shadow over him. It means you're going to stay, Jack. You'll stay and you'll honor what the previous owner promised. And when you do, you'll understand everything. You'll see why we're here, why this debt exists, and why you're the one who must fulfill it. Jack stared at her, trying to make sense of her words. What debt? What the hell are you talking about? The debt isn't just financial, Ruth said, her tone turning cold and matter-of-fact. It's a debt of obligation, of connection. The land was promised to us long before you came here, and Marcus, he broke his word. Now, you're here to honor it. Jack's head spun. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but they didn't make any sense. This is insane, he whispered, the words tasting like metal in his mouth. I don't owe you anything. I didn't even know about this arrangement. You do now, Helena said, her voice firm but not unkind. And you'll learn to honor it, Jack. You'll see. Once you accept it, everything will become clear. Jack took a step back, his eyes darting between the three women. They stood in front of him, their imposing figures like stone pillars, blocking any way out. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension, an energy Jack couldn't name. Why me? Jack asked, his voice cracking. Why the hell am I part of this? I didn't ask for this. I didn't sign anything. I didn't make any promises. Why is it me? Magdalene's lips twitched, a sly smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. Because you were chosen, Jack. You're exactly what we need, and you'll understand why soon enough. Jack's heart hammered in his chest. This wasn't about a simple property transaction anymore. This was about something else, something he had never anticipated. These women weren't just squatters, and the land wasn't just barren soil. There was power here. Power that had been waiting for someone to come along and fulfill a promise that had been broken long ago. And now, it was his turn to make good on it. You're part of our family now, Helena said softly, her words carrying an almost hypnotic pull. And once you accept that, we'll help you understand everything. The debt will be paid, and you'll belong to the land as we do. Jack's mind raced as he looked at the three of them, the realization dawning that no matter what he did, no matter how hard he tried to run, there was no escape. They had him. The land had him. And now, there was only one way forward. Fine, Jack said, his voice low and defeated. What do I have to do? The women exchanged looks, a silent understanding passing between them. Then, Helena smiled a smile that held more than a hint of satisfaction. You'll stay, Jack. You'll honor what was promised, and you'll learn how to live with us. All of us. Jack swallowed hard, the weight of their words sinking into his bones. He didn't know what he had just agreed to, but he knew one thing. There was no turning back now. The next few days passed in a blur, each one blending into the other like a slow-moving river, its current dragging Jack deeper into something he couldn't quite understand. He spent more time in silence, working on the ranch as the women watched him, their presence always near but never overtly demanding. They no longer seemed like threats, but Jack knew that wasn't true. No, it wasn't that they were less dangerous. It was that their control over him had deepened, settling like a quiet, inevitable force. It started with little things, the way Helena's eyes followed him across the fields, never faltering. The subtle touches Ruth gave him when they worked together, small, fleeting, but always present. Magdalene was the most elusive, her laughter sometimes echoing in the distance when Jack was alone, her gaze a fleeting thing that left him feeling strangely exposed. They didn't speak much, but there didn't need to be words anymore. Jack could feel the weight of their expectations pressing on him. The hardest part, though, was the land itself. It wasn't just the isolation anymore, or the eerie silence that filled the space between him and the women. It was the way the earth felt beneath his feet. The soil wasn't just dirt anymore. It felt alive. The crops that had once withered now showed signs of life, and the trees, those same twisted, bending trees, seemed to lean closer, almost protective. But despite everything, Jack couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. He had made the deal his deal, right? But the deeper he got into the routine, the more the land seemed to claim him, to bind him to it in ways he hadn't expected. One evening, after a long day of work, Jack collapsed onto the porch, the exhaustion from the day's labor settling into his bones. The sun was dipping low on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of red and orange. For the first time since he had arrived, Jack felt like he could breathe. The oppressive weight of the women's presence lifted, just for a moment. He allowed himself a small, fleeting sense of peace. That was when Helena appeared. She stepped onto the porch, her figure tall against the setting sun, her silhouette casting a long shadow over him. "You've been working hard," she said, her voice softer than usual, though it still carried that same commanding presence. She sat down beside him without asking, the space between them shrinking in an instant. Jack didn't know what to say. The words he had been rehearsing in his mind for days, the questions, the demands for answers seemed to dissolve in her presence. Instead, he merely nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "I don't know if I'll ever understand what's really going on here," Jack admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm doing what you asked. I'm here. I'm working. But I still don't understand why you need me." "Why me?" Helena didn't answer right away. She leaned back, her eyes taking in the landscape as if seeing it for the first time. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, almost wistful. "The land chooses, Jack. It doesn't care who you are or what you want. It chooses you." She turned her gaze toward him then, her eyes piercing through the growing darkness. "It's a bond, not a choice. A debt, yes, but also something deeper, something ancient. The land has always been ours, but you..." She paused, her lips curving into a subtle smile. "You were brought here to fulfill a promise. Jack swallowed hard, the words hanging in the air like a dark cloud. And what's that promise? She glanced at him, her smile widening, though her eyes remained unreadable. That's something you'll understand soon enough. Jack's stomach twisted. He didn't like the sound of that. The promise felt like a trap, one he had already stepped into without realizing it. Every day he spent here, the grip of the land tightened, and the women more than just women now, but figures of something. More continued to watch him, their eyes filled with an expectation he couldn't escape. As the night deepened, Jack felt the subtle shift. There was a power to them now, a quiet strength that wasn't just in their size or presence, it was in the way the land responded to them. The soil thrived under their touch. The crops, once dying, now flourished. The animals seemed calmer in their presence. Everything was falling into place, and Jack couldn't deny the pull he felt toward them, toward the land, toward something that wasn't just about survival or work, it was about something deeper. He turned to Helena, his voice barely above a whisper. What do you want from me? What happens if I give in? What does that mean for me? Helena studied him for a long moment, her gaze steady and unyielding. It means you'll belong here, Jack. You'll belong to us, to the land, to everything that's been promised. You'll find peace here, or you'll fight. But in the end, the choice is always the land's. The words hit him like a punch to the gut. Jack felt the weight of them press down on him, the realization that he had no control, no way out, crashing over him. The land had already claimed him. It was only a matter of time before he fully surrendered to it. And the women? They weren't just asking him to stay. They were pulling him into something that went beyond anything he could understand. The power they had over him wasn't just physical. It was spiritual, emotional, all-encompassing. Helena stood, her figure towering over him, and for the first time, Jack realized that it wasn't just the land that had chosen him. It was them, too. They had claimed him. And in doing so, they had shifted everything, his past, his future, and his very existence. You'll understand soon enough, Helena said softly, her voice almost gentle now, before she turned and walked back toward the farmhouse, leaving Jack alone on the porch. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter as the cool night air settled in, but Jack knew that the peace he felt wouldn't last. Not for long, not now that the land, and the women, had claimed him completely. Jack's days on the ranch became a blur of work, silence, and the occasional exchange with the women. It wasn't just the physical labor anymore, it was the strange, gnawing pull he felt toward the land and the women who controlled it. They never spoke directly about what they wanted from him, but there was an unspoken understanding in the air that Jack couldn't escape. There were moments when he thought he could leave, he'd feel the faintest stir of hope, a fleeting thought that he could grab his things and simply walk away. But every time, the land seemed to shift beneath his feet, guiding him back to where he needed to be. The road would never let him go. The trees seemed to lean closer as if blocking his way, and the night sky above felt suffocating, like it was watching him. The strange, pervasive sense of being trapped began to weigh heavily on Jack. But it wasn't until one evening that he began to truly understand what had ensnared him. It was late, just after supper, when Helena approached him in the field, her silhouette cutting a dark figure against the twilight sky. Jack had been mending the fence, his hands sore from the long day of work. He paused when he saw her, his body tensing instinctively. Helena walked toward him slowly, her steps deliberate, and when she reached him, she didn't speak immediately. She simply stood there for a long moment, her piercing eyes locked onto his, as though assessing something hidden beneath the surface. Jack shifted uncomfortably under her gaze. "What is it, Helena?" he asked, his voice rough from the strain of the day. She didn't answer right away, and Jack could feel the silence stretching between them. It wasn't the uncomfortable kind of silence, it was the kind that was thick with meaning, as though every second that passed held the weight of an unspoken truth. Finally, she spoke. "You think this is all a mistake, don't you, Jack? You think this is some kind of twisted game?" Jack didn't answer, but his eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Helena's gaze softened slightly, though the underlying intensity never left her. "You've been asking yourself why, haven't you? Why you? Why here? Why us?" Jack's throat tightened. He had asked himself those questions more times than he cared to admit, but something about hearing her voice ask it, too, made the air feel heavier. She stepped closer, her presence consuming him. "You came here because the land needed you. The debt you inherited wasn't just some business agreement, it's a promise. A promise made long before you ever set foot on this property. A promise to us." Jack's heart skipped a beat. What kind of promise? Helena's expression shifted slightly, the cool exterior cracking just enough for Jack to catch a glimpse of something deeper, something older. The promise of a bond, a connection that transcends time, a legacy that's been passed down through generations. And now, it's yours. You're the one who will fulfill it. Jack's mind raced. A bond? A legacy? What the hell was she talking about? He wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but something in the air told him this wasn't a conversation he could force. Helena's words hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. "We've been waiting for someone like you," she continued, her voice low, almost soothing now. "The land has been calling for someone to take the next step, to continue the cycle. You're here for a reason, Jack. This place chose you." "Chose me?" Jack repeated, his voice hoarse, the weight of her words sinking into him. He wanted to run, to escape this nightmare. But he couldn't. Something was holding him here. Something more than just fear. Helena nodded, her eyes locking onto his. "Yes. This land doesn't just belong to us, it belongs to something older, to something that existed long before we did. The debt that Marcus Vance left behind wasn't just a financial one. It was a spiritual debt, a debt of connection. He broke it. And now, it's your turn to fix it." Jack felt a chill crawl down his spine. "I don't," he started, but Helena raised a hand to stop him. "You will understand, Jack. You will learn what it means. It's not something you can fight. It's something you'll become part of. It's the land's will." Her words were like a weight on his chest, and for the first time, Jack understood. He wasn't here by accident. The land had called to him, and now, it was going to take him. Whether he wanted it or not, whether he understood it or not, "There's no escape," Helena said softly, her voice almost gentle now, though the undercurrent of power was unmistakable. "Not from this, not from us, and not from what you've become a part of." Jack's knees felt weak, and he staggered slightly, his breath catching in his throat. This wasn't just a debt, it was a bond, something that reached deep into the earth and tied him to this place, to these women, to something much older than him. Helena watched him, her eyes filled with a mix of pity and expectation. "The sooner you accept it, the sooner you'll understand your place here. The sooner you'll realize that we are all connected. All of us. The land, the debt, the promise. It's all one." Jack's head spun. He didn't know what to say. The truth, if it could even be called that, was unraveling before him, a truth he couldn't deny any longer. The land had chosen him, and now, there was no going back. Helena stood, her tall figure blocking out the fading sunlight. "You belong here, Jack. You always have. Now, all that's left is for you to accept it." She turned and walked away, leaving Jack standing there, rooted to the spot. The earth beneath his feet felt colder now, the weight of her words sinking deeper into him. There was no escape from this, no way out. He was tied to the land now, and it was going to claim him, body and soul. The days bled into each other as Jack struggled to adjust to the strange new rhythm of life on the ranch. There was no longer a clear division between his work and the women's quiet watch over him. Everything blended into one uneasy, unspoken understanding. The land seemed to pulse beneath his feet, its presence constantly hovering over him, as if it had already claimed him as its own. And the women? They were no longer mere figures in the background of his life. They had become part of the landscape itself. They were the guardians of the land, the keepers of the promise. And in some twisted way, Jack realized that he was beginning to depend on them. Helena's steady gaze, Ruth's quiet strength, and Magdalene's unpredictable energy had become constants in his days. They didn't need to speak to exert their control, they simply existed. And that was enough to make Jack feel both tethered and unmoored at the same time. But despite the distance between them, despite his lingering resistance, Jack found himself drawn to them in ways he couldn't explain. It started with small moments, brief glances, fleeting touches, the quiet way they interacted with him. And though he tried to ignore it, tried to push it down and pretend it didn't matter, the pull he felt toward them was undeniable. He'd catch himself staring at Helena sometimes, watching the way the late afternoon light played across her strong features, the way her eyes seemed to see right through him. There was something mesmerizing about her, something magnetic, as if she wasn't just a woman but a force of nature. And then there was Ruth, the quiet one, the way she moved, always deliberate, always with purpose. She had a calm strength that Jack couldn't help but admire. It wasn't the kind of strength that demanded attention, but the kind that silently commanded it. Her presence was like the earth itself, steady, unwavering. Magdalene was different. Her energy was electric, unpredictable, and yet there was an underlying gentleness to her. She would slip into the room unexpectedly, her laughter filling the space, and in those moments, Jack would feel his heart race, though he couldn't tell if it was out of fear or something else entirely. The connection between them, though unspoken, was growing stronger. Jack could feel it, especially when they worked together. The strange bond he had with the land was starting to mirror the one he was forming with them. It wasn't just physical, though something about the way they looked at him, something about the way they knew him, seemed to reach deep into his soul. It was like they were claiming him, piece by piece, pulling him closer until he couldn't tell where he ended and they began. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the fields, Jack found himself standing by the barn with Ruth. They had spent the day fixing the fence, and now, as the work slowed, the air between them became thick with unspoken tension. Ruth wasn't speaking much, but there was something different about her now, a warmth in her eyes, an openness that hadn't been there before. "I know you don't understand this," Ruth said softly, her voice low and steady as always. "But we've been waiting for you, Jack. For a long time." Jack didn't know how to respond. The words felt like a heavy weight in his chest. He was supposed to be angry, or afraid, or something. But the longer he stayed here, the more he felt the need to accept their presence, to accept them. He had come to this place hoping for a fresh start. But now, it felt like he had fallen into a world he couldn't escape. "I don't know what to do with all of this," he admitted, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. It's like I'm losing myself here. Like I'm becoming part of something I don't understand." Ruth's gaze softened, and for the first time, Jack saw a flicker of sympathy in her eyes. She stepped closer, her presence filling the space between them. "You're not losing yourself, Jack. You're finding who you really are. This land, it calls to us, and we answer. That's the bond. That's what's been passed down to us, and now to you." Jack's chest tightened, and for a moment, he thought he might say something, anything to break the growing tension between them. But then, Ruth reached out, her hand brushing against his arm. The touch was light, gentle, but it sent a jolt of electricity through him. It wasn't just a touch, it was a connection. Something deeper than words, deeper than logic. Before he could respond, Helena's voice cut through the quiet evening air. "Ruth, you're not the only one waiting for him." Ruth pulled back immediately, her gaze flicking toward Helena. The air between them shifted, and for a brief moment, Jack felt like an outsider, an observer in a world that was spinning too fast for him to keep up. But then, as if on cue, Magdalene appeared, her vibrant energy filling the space. "We all want him to understand, Helena," she said, a playful smile dancing on her lips, though there was something deeper in her eyes. "We all want him to realize what he's becoming, what we're all becoming together." Jack's pulse quickened as the three women gathered around him, their energy palpable, their presence overwhelming. He couldn't escape them. Not now, not after everything they had said and done. And as the darkness of night settled around them, Jack understood something in his bones. He was becoming part of something much bigger than he had ever anticipated. A force, a family, a bond. He didn't know exactly what it was, but it was pulling him in, and he couldn't fight it. Helena stepped forward, her gaze never leaving his. "You're not just a guest here anymore, Jack. You're one of us, whether you're ready for it or not." Jack's heart thudded in his chest, and as he looked at each of them, he knew deep down that it was true. He was no longer an outsider. The land had chosen him, and now he was bound to it, bound to them. Jack woke to a strange stillness that morning, a quiet that settled over the ranch like a thick fog. The sun hadn't risen fully, and the land felt more expansive than ever before, vast and alive in a way that both comforted and terrified him. The birds hadn't started singing yet, and the wind seemed to whisper something just out of reach. It was as if the earth itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. As he walked out to the field, the weight of the previous days hung heavily on his shoulders. His life had become a strange blend of work, silence, and fleeting moments of connection. He had known, in some way, that this day would come, the day when he would have to make a decision. The women had been patient with him, allowing him the space to come to terms with his place here. But Jack knew that the time to choose was fast approaching. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. The land, the women, the promise he had inherited, it was all connected in ways he didn't fully understand, but it was undeniable. The pull of the land was growing stronger, the bond he shared with the women deepening in ways he couldn't resist. Yet every part of him still screamed that he had to escape, that he couldn't remain a prisoner of this place, of their power. But the longer he stayed, the harder it was to leave. He found Helena in the fields, her tall figure outlined against the rising sun, her back straight as she worked with the crops. There was something about her, something that made his heart race whenever she was near. Her power was both mesmerizing and intimidating, and Jack had started to realize that it wasn't just the land he was bound to, it was her. She looked up as he approached, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that felt almost intimate. "You're here," she said simply, as if she had been expecting him all along. "Have you made your decision yet?" Jack hesitated, the weight of her gaze pressing down on him. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice low, raw. "I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know if I should stay or leave. I can't tell what's real anymore." Helena set down the tool she had been holding and took a slow step toward him, her presence overwhelming as always. "The land doesn't give you the luxury of indecision, Jack. It doesn't work that way. You were chosen for a reason. And now, the question is, are you ready to accept that? To become part of something greater than yourself?" Jack's breath caught in his throat. "You keep saying that part of something greater, but what does that mean? What do you want from me?" Helena reached out, her fingers grazing his arm lightly, sending a shock of heat through him. "We want you to accept what has already been set in motion. The land, the debt, the bond, it's all part of a greater purpose. A legacy that's been passed down for generations. You are the one who must fulfill it." Jack swallowed hard. "And if I don't, what happens then?" Helena's gaze darkened slightly, but the gentleness never left her voice. "You'll face the consequences of your refusal. The land will not let you go, Jack. Not unless you're ready to accept what it's offering you." Jack felt his heart race as the weight of her words sank in. The consequences. What did that even mean? And yet, despite his fear, a part of him knew that this was the moment he had been dreading, the moment he couldn't avoid any longer. "I don't want to be part of this," Jack whispered, the words bitter on his tongue. "I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted a place to start over. I just wanted to get away from everything." Helena stepped closer, her presence so close now that Jack could feel the heat radiating off her. "You came here for a reason, Jack. The land has always been waiting for someone like you. It's not about running away anymore. It's about understanding where you fit into all of this. It's about becoming part of something that's been waiting for you." Jack's hands clenched into fists. "I'm not sure I can accept it," he said, his voice strained. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." Helena's expression softened, just slightly, as she reached out to touch his cheek with the lightest of caresses. "You don't have to be strong, Jack. You just have to choose." The words hit him like a physical blow. He had been given a choice: stay and embrace the bond, the legacy, everything that came with it, or leave and face whatever consequences the land had in store for him. "I can't stay here forever," Jack muttered, almost to himself, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Helena studied him for a long moment, her gaze never wavering. "You already are here forever, Jack. You just haven't realized it yet." Before he could respond, Ruth appeared, her steady gaze watching the two of them. "The land is patient," she said quietly, her voice carrying the same calm authority it always did. "But it's time to make your choice, Jack. It's time to understand what you're becoming." Magdalene appeared at Ruth's side, her playful smile replaced by something more serious, more intense. "The land will take you whether you're ready or not. But we want you to make the choice, to understand what it means to be part of us, to understand what we've all built together." Jack looked between them, his mind swirling with confusion, fear, and something else, something deeper, something that felt like acceptance. He had been running from this moment for so long, but now, standing before the women, standing in front of the land, he knew there was no running anymore. No more choices to delay. This was his moment, and no matter what he decided, his life would never be the same. The moment Jack had been dreading had arrived, and he found himself standing on the edge of something he couldn't fully comprehend. The choice had never been so clear, yet it felt impossible to make. The land, he had come here to escape it, to escape the memories, the mistakes, the failures. But now, it was more than just land. It was alive, it was breathing, and it had claimed him in ways he hadn't imagined. Helena, Ruth, and Magdalene stood in front of him, watching him with the same steady, unblinking gaze they always had. They weren't just women to him anymore. They were forces, anchors to the land, the ones who had been waiting for him. And now, they were offering him something that went beyond anything he could have predicted. "I don't know if I can do this," Jack said, his voice trembling slightly as he stared at them. "I don't know if I can accept it. This isn't what I thought it would be. It's too much." Magdalene's eyes softened, and she took a step toward him. "You don't have to do it all at once, Jack. You don't have to understand everything right now. But you need to understand this. You are already tied to this place, tied to us. Whether you accept it or not, you're a part of this now." Jack swallowed hard. "I never asked for this. I didn't want it." "I know," Ruth said gently, her voice carrying the weight of something old and ancient. "None of us do. But that's what makes it real. The land chooses, and once you're chosen, you don't get to walk away. The land doesn't allow it." Jack felt his stomach twist, but as much as he fought it, a part of him knew she was right. There was no escaping it. There was no way out. Helena stepped forward, her presence almost overwhelming. "But you can accept it, Jack. And when you do, you'll realize that it's not a burden, it's a gift. The land, the debt, the bond, it's all part of something greater. And you're a part of it now. You've always been a part of it." Her words settled into his chest like a heavy weight, and Jack felt something shift within him. It was as though the ground beneath him was shifting too slowly, inexorably pulling him closer to the truth that he had always known deep down, even if he had tried to deny it. The land had chosen him, and no matter how much he fought it, he was bound to it, bound to them. Jack's hands clenched at his sides as the weight of his decision pressed down on him. He wasn't sure if he was ready to accept it, but in that moment, he knew there was no running anymore. No more pretending. No more escape. This was his life now, and he had to decide whether to face it head-on or be consumed by it. "I don't know what's waiting for me if I accept," Jack said, his voice barely above a whisper. Helena's expression softened, though the steel in her gaze never left. "What's waiting for you is a new life, Jack. A life that isn't bound by the things you ran from. A life that's tied to something real. Something that's as old as the earth itself." Jack's heart pounded in his chest as the weight of her words sank in. It was true. His old life, the one he had been trying to outrun, no longer existed. He had come to the ranch looking for freedom, but what he had found instead was something far more complex. Something that couldn't be ignored. "Will I ever be free?" he asked, his voice cracking. Helena's lips curled into a slight, knowing smile. "No, Jack. Not in the way you think. But you will be free in a different sense. You'll be free from the things that held you back. You'll be part of something that's bigger than anything you ever imagined." Jack took a deep breath, feeling the tension in his chest ease slightly. For the first time since he had arrived, he didn't feel the weight of resistance pressing down on him. It wasn't that the fear was gone, it was that, in that moment, he had accepted it. Accepted what had been given to him, whether he understood it or not. "I'm ready," he said, the words coming easier than he expected. Helena nodded slowly, her eyes glinting with something unreadable. "Then welcome, Jack. You're one of us now." Jack's heart raced, but there was a strange sense of peace settling over him. The decision had been made. The land, the debt, the bond, everything had led him to this moment. And though he didn't understand everything, he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't alone anymore. He was part of something. Something that was as old as the land itself. The three women stepped closer, and for the first time, Jack didn't feel fear. He felt a strange sense of belonging, a sense of peace. It was as though the land itself was welcoming him home. And just like that, Jack understood. He was tied to the land, tied to them, tied to the debt, and the promise that had been passed down for generations. There was no going back. But maybe, just maybe, that wasn't such a terrible thing after all.